Hey everyone, it's Mr. Salmingo. This video is on science section 1, and I'm going to put this into pieces, 10 minutes, 10-minute bite-sized chunks so that it's easy for you to understand. Just know that science is one of my favorite topics this year because I actually know this. I actually love science. I used to teach science. So if I seem more excited about this topic, it's because I am, and science and math are my thing. So this section is about individual and population ecology. As a matter of fact, the whole science section is about ecology. Ecology, the definition of ecology is the study of relationships between organisms and organisms and the environment, things like that. So it's about relationships. So the whole topic of ecology is very visual, like you could see everything. So different than, say, chemistry or things that you can't visualize or see. Everything about ecology is something that you can visualize or see or understand. So for a lot of you, this might be an easy topic. Again, in previous years, science was very difficult. This one I think you can get. So first of all, when we talk about ecology, again, it's the study of relationships between organisms and their environment. So there's human ecology, landscape ecology, disturbance, wildlife, urban, plant. So between organisms and their environments, what is that relationship like? The study of that is called ecology. Okay. Now, there are different definitions that you need to know about ecology. One of them is the difference between what they call biotic and abiotic. Bio, the prefix bio means life. So if he's talking about a biotic component or a biotic interaction or a biotic anything biotic, that means it's a living part of the environment. So for example, just so that you know, this company that we get these PowerPoints from, their mascot is the alpaca. So a lot of examples that you'll see in this PowerPoint and other things, they always use alpacas. So for example, biotic interactions occur between the same or different kinds of organisms, like this alpaca. Abiotic, the prefix, a means not, and bio means life, so not living. Okay, so it's an abiotic action is between an organism and its environment. So this silly alpaca is playing in snow. So that's an abiotic interaction. Now, the history, in the section you would have read a really brief history of what this term called oikology, which is basically the term that ecology came from. So first of all, in terms of a timeline, Darwin, who you should have studied before in biology, Charles Darwin proposes the theory of natural selection and the origin of species. Ernst Haeckel, he's the one that gets the title of father of quote-unquote ecology. So he defines ecology as a study of interactions between organisms and their environment. Haeckel, the reason why we have Darwin here is because Haeckel is he's the one that recognized and developed and defined that there is a relationship between ecology and natural selection that Darwin is famous for. And then later on in the 1900s and 1990s especially, environmental studies became very popular. But just to be clear, as the reading says, environmental studies is different than ecology, even though they get tied in the same. So what we're doing is not environmental studies. What we're doing is ecology. The difference is environmental studies studies what the humans are doing to impact the environment, whereas ecology, again, is about the relationships. So that's oikology. Again, going through definitions that you need to know when we discuss ecology, this is what they call the ecological hierarchy. So you know basically the order in which we analyze ecology. A single organism is called an individual. So for example, Fluffy the alpaca. A whole bunch of alpacas is called a population. So a whole bunch of individuals make up a population. So Fluffy with all of her alpaca friends. Okay, a whole bunch of populations, different kinds, create a community. So Fluffy with llamas, vicuñas, guanacos, frogs, dogs, a whole bunch of different populations interacting in the same environment, that's called a community. A whole bunch of communities together is called an ecosystem. So it's a community of organisms and abiotic in which they live. So everything that is living and dead around Fluffy. A biome is a large-scale region dominated by different types or similar types of ecosystems. And a whole bunch of biomes make up the biosphere, and in actuality, the biosphere is Earth. Okay, so now that you know the order of rank and hierarchy in ecology. Hierarchical ecology. So in talking about different ecologies, here are the different hierarchies. So population ecology is the study of how populations change over time and space. So again, if we studied alpacas, you could talk about how that population of alpacas, how it's changed over time and space. Community ecology is the study of interactions between species and communities. So you can see alpacas, but you see them with, I can't tell in the background, but it's like buffalo or something. But the study of the interactions between species and their communities. Ecosystem, the study of biotic and abiotic components of ecosystems. And then landscape is the relationship between ecological processes and ecosystems. And then they jump into the science section jumps into a description of the scientific method, which again, since you all are mostly seniors and juniors, and some sophomores, you should know the scientific method very well. So you do an observation. Based on your observations, you have an hypothesis, or you have a hypothesis, or a general description or philosophy or prediction of what the rest of the world is like. You test this hypothesis. You get results. If the results match your hypothesis, then you've confirmed your hypothesis. And then if it's been supported enough, you get a scientific theory. So when multiple related hypotheses have been repeatedly tested, a theory, such as the Big Bang Theory, is formed. Okay? If you have a hypothesis and then you falsify it, or it's inconsistent with your hypothesis, you have to revise your hypothesis or whatever. Okay? The scientific method is used at each level of ecology to build a collective understanding of the natural world. Okay? So again, stuff that you already know. All right, again, whole section about kind of definitions. Climate. We're wondering what climate is and what's the difference between climate and weather. Weather is kind of like what is going on like right now. So the weather today is hot. Okay, it's over 90 degrees. That's the weather. Okay, the climate is what is it long-term wise, average-wise, here in Los Angeles, here in Pasadena. What is the general trend of weather, the general patterns you get in this area? That's climate. Okay, so the weather can be tracked or can be defined by what is the temperature, what's the humidity, what's the precipitation, the wind patterns. That's weather. But long-term patterns is the climate. In general, for example, maritime climate, or climate that is near a sea, ocean, body of water, it's usually high humidity, and it usually has very few temperature fluctuations. So in general, like Los Angeles or Southern California, we have this maritime climate. Our climate very rarely, our temperature, I know you think I'm crazy, but it fluctuates very rarely. It's not crazy. I know it rains sometimes. It gets hot sometimes. But in general, there's not that much fluctuation in the weather. That differs from, say, continental climate, so climates in areas that are not next to a body of water. They're large, they're seasonal, there's daily temperature variation. We don't have that. Okay, that's climate. Climate change is basically spatial patterns based upon topography and altitude. Okay, so one example that you should have read about is called the rain-shadow effect. The rain-shadow effect is basically when you have a mountain range, okay, you tend to have one area that gets all the rain and on the precipitation, okay, so this side, and on the other side, they call it the shadow, the rain shadow, gets really nothing. It's dry, it's warm, it tends to be desert. So for example, you don't have to look so far. I think on the west coast of the Cascade Mountains, so I know it's hard to see and it's small, but if you look at it, again, this is the picture of the state of Washington. So the Cascade Mountains are right here. So to the west of the Cascade Mountains, they have heavy precipitation, like there's a ton of water. But to the east side of the mountains, it's desert, it's arid, it's dry, it's warm. That's what you call the rain shadow effect, and that's what we're talking about, these spatial patterns. It really relies on topography and altitude. Okay. Now, you could get seasonal patterns in climate change. And so you may have heard a lot about how it's an El Nino year or getting El Nino. You may be wondering, what is El Nino, or what's the gist of it? Okay. Basically, we get these seasonal patterns. All the climate, all the weather, all this is based upon like our relation to the sun. So if you're close to the sun, you're tilted away from the sun, you're far away from the sun, that all determines your climate. It changes everything. The winds, the water, the rain, everything all determines on our placement, your placement in relationship to the sun. So because of the Earth's orbit around the sun, depending on the year, we get these climate pattern changes. One of the more familiar ones, especially here to us on the West Coast, is called El Nino, or the official term is called El Nino Southern Oscillation, or ENSO. Okay? ENSO is a large-scale climate fluctuation caused by seasonal changes in solar radiation. So again, we are radiated by we are warmed up by the sun, and depending on our tilt, where we are, time of year, it's a little bit different. Okay? What happens in El Nino, okay, is in a normal year, and again, this affects us a lot because we're on the west coast of North America, is that we have this cycle. Okay, what happens is that I guess I wish I could zoom in here, but basically it's a cycle where we have a lot of cold water here, and the warm water moves west, which causes precipitation here, and it goes into the cycle. Okay, in a ENSO, an El Nino year, okay, we don't get those trade winds. So basically, we have trade winds that are circular. Okay, normally where we are in relationship to the sun causes the winds to go in a circular fashion. The trade winds go in the south, go from east to west, and in the north, go from west to east. Okay, but in an El Nino year, the trade winds die. We don't get those winds. So if those winds don't happen, the warm and the cold water that I just talked about doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, then I don't get this great, this precipitation here and not so much here. What we end up getting is that we get these convection cycles where now we, particularly us on Southern California, on the west side of North America or South America, we get more rain that year because typically the cycle happens like this and the rain goes here. But since that warm water doesn't travel west, that warm water, again, is more likely to evaporate, make clouds, and then we get more rain, and that's the El Nino phenomenon. Okay, and part of this is changing frequently because of we're burning more greenhouse gases. So you may have heard of carbon dioxide. The burning of carbon is causing changes in global warming, which means a lot of places it's ruined the typical cycle of our weather and climate patterns. So I'm going to stop here. Again, I'm going to put this in 10-minute chunks. I'm at 11 minutes. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video.